Battle of Tarot. Learn to play in under 5 minutes. So grab your favorite tarot deck. A tarot deck has minor arcana, which is 4 suits of pentacles, wands, swords, and cups, and a major arcana or trump suit. All right, let's see the setup of the game. We have our Deck of Fate, which is our minor arcana or troop cards. These get played onto the battlefields. We have Deck of Divinity, is the major arcana divine signs, which are spells that get cast. We have the graveyards to the side, and in between the players is the battlefield, the 3x3 grid. We include the flanking lanes on the left and right, the middle lane down the center. We have each player's territory and the front line. A player's castle or life total is directly in front of their territory in the middle lane. To deal damage, you must be positioned in your enemy's territory in the middle lane to deal damage direct to their life total. Now onto order of play. Phase 1 is upkeep, so we each draw a divine sign. I draw the tower, my opponent draws death. We draw 5 cards from the Deck of Fate for our hand, then flip one over for the favorite suit, and this is twice as much damage for the suit this round. Now to the action phase. We start with the highest initiative of divine sign drawn that turn, and we can do one of 4 different actions. First, you can rally, which is play a troop card from your hand onto the battlefield in your territory on an empty slot or on another army of the same suit. An army's power is determined by the total number of cards on that army stack. Second type of action you can take is march, so you choose an army on the battlefield and it can move left, right, or forward, never backwards. You can also take a troop in the army stack and every other troop above it, and you can split the army and you can move part of the army. But in this case, we're going to move an army forward. The third type of action you can take is flanking. So if you have an army in a flanking lane with a target enemy in the middle lane, you can declare flanking by turning it on its side, and it no longer targets the enemy in front of it, but to the center. And this also gives the army advantage, and this will come into play during combat, which we'll get to later. My opponent is just going to march real quick, and then I'm going to choose the 4th possible action, which is to pass. If a player chooses to pass twice in a row, or if both players pass consecutively, the action phase immediately ends and we move to the battle phase. In the battle phase, there are 2 stages of combat. There's advantage combat and standard combat. All damage in each phase is dealt simultaneously, so starting with our flanking army who has advantage, it will be attacking to the middle lane here. We deal damage down the stack, starting with the top troop, which gets damaged, and then the second troop, and any remaining damage. If it's not enough to kill the army, that troop stays on the board. Now to standard combat, we look at all the other armies that are facing other armies and we start dealing damage. So this right army, top right, will deal enough damage to kill this flanking army, so that now goes to the graveyard, and now these 2 armies from the front line in my territory start dealing damage. The remaining damage is enough to kill the 8 health left on the wands, and the wands were able to kill my top card in the army. After the battle phase, we move to the last phase, which is castle defense. Castle defense, you can spend any cards in your hand to deal direct damage to any enemy armies in your territory. So in this case, I will need to spend at least 80 damage to kill that army, which I do so. And don't forget, if you have the favorite suit, you will be able to apply double damage. And that's the end of the round. So you start with upkeep of the next round, draw your divine signs, and you continue from there. Now let's look at the special abilities cards have. Starting with the minor arcana, we have the 4 court cards: page, knight, queen, king. Page, if the page is in an army, it can move 1 space after battle. Knights can be rallied to the front line. They can also march 2 spaces instead of 1. A queen card, if it's on the battlefield, the favored suit cannot deal double damage to that army. And a king's army can be swapped with an adjacent army you control. And if the position now has a valid target for flanking, like we are doing here, you can then declare for free a flanking action on that opponent's army. And finally, we have the ace. An ace is not a court card. Its value is only 1 as opposed to 10 of the court cards. But an ace, if it is positioned in an army with no other court cards, it becomes a people's army, which gives it advantage on all attacks. Alright, now let's look at divine signs. So if we look at the divine signs, they can be spent at any time during the game. My opponent has death here. Its ability can kill 1 troop on the battlefield, and so my troop will choose the Ace of Cups here, and that goes straight into the graveyard. Now let's look at my divine signs. I have 3 available. I will spend the Empress. Its ability allows me to prevent an army of mine from being flanked, so I will reset that for my action. Each divine sign has a unique ability that can be cast to break the game, so make sure to check the rulebook to see what abilities are possible. And that is Battle of Tarot. Enjoy!